Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Star Wars Rattlorian video. Today, we will be continuing our talk about my rankings of all the Star Wars films. Today, we will be talking about the two Star Wars story films that take place between episodes 3 and 4. Those would be Solo, a Star Wars story, and Rogue One, a Star Wars story. So we'll go in chronological order. So Solo takes place before Rogue One because Rogue One leads right into episode 4, A New Hope. So Solo, I really like the film. I know a lot of people kind of boycotted going to the film because it came out after The Last Jedi, and a lot of people weren't too happy about how The Last Jedi finished. They didn't like what Rian Johnson did with the movie. So a lot of people boycotted going to Solo, which they've missed out, in my opinion, because we learn about Han. I think Alden Ehrenreich does a great job at playing a young Han Solo. Harrison Ford said it himself, he did a better job than Harrison ever did, which I think that was Harrison just being a little, modest. He obviously nobody can touch how good Harrison Ford does as Han Solo, but I think that they do a great job. Donald Glover also does a great job playing Lando Calrissian. Obviously, he's not going to touch Billy D. Williams being Lando, but he does a great job as well. And I think Solo does a great job at filling in that story of kind of where Han comes from, how he gets the Falcon, how he meets Chewie, and then kind of how Han turns into, the smuggler he is. He wants to do a job and kind of be out for himself, but he also cares for others too. We see that at the end of the film where he gives the coaxium that he steals from Kessel to Enfys Nest and the rest of the Cloud Runners. So in Solo, we also see the Kessel Run with the Falcon. I thought that was probably the coolest scene in the whole movie, is getting to see his boss, or kind of his mentor, Tobias Beckett, put the coaxium into the hyperdrive and make the Falcon really become the fastest ship in the galaxy. We get to learn how to play the game Sabacc, and that's how Han wins the Falcon from Lando. It's because the first time he plays, Lando cheats, and afterwards he goes back and wins the Falcon back from Lando. We also meet Lando's droid, L3, and L3 ends up dying, and they plug her navigation into the Falcon. And we actually see a connection in this in episode 5 when Han and Leia and Chewie and C-3PO are trying to escape the Empire, and they hide on that asteroid, which is actually inside of that worm. And they plug C-3PO into the Navicomputer, and C-3PO says, "Your ship has the most peculiar dialect." That's because it's L3. L3 is part of the ship. So he's trying to figure out what L3 is saying and where to navigate. So to kind of wrap up the whole movie, I would give it a 7.6. I really liked the film. I think it answered a lot of questions. I really hope that they come out with a Solo 2, because at the end, Beckett says he heard about a job, a big shot gangster on Tatooine. So that's obviously Jabba. So we could see where Han drops his cargo at the first sight of an Imperial blockade, because he got boarded. Because that's in episode 4, he talks to Jabba about that, and he tries to double the price for bringing Luke, Obi-Wan, C-3PO, and R2-D2 to Alderaan. So the next film is Rogue One. And Rogue One, I think, is a great story because you have this girl who basically renounces the rebellion and the Empire. She kind of is, she just doesn't want to deal with anything. The Empire kind of took everything from her, and then she joined the rebellion for a bit with Saw Gerrera, and the rebellion just kind of left her, which eventually Saw Gerrera kind of breaks from the rebellion because he's a political idealist, or extremist. Sorry, he's an extremist, and she basically wants just nothing to do with the fight, and eventually the rebellion cuts her a deal that she can go free, kind of wipe everything off her slate. And this is where she kind of forms up her crew, and she finds Saw Gerrera, gets her father's message, and this is where they have to go find the Death Star plans. So at that time, Tarkin, Grand Moff Tarkin, and Director Krennic used the Death Star on the Holy City Jeddah, basically destroying the last of the Jedi, kind of wiping them from the galaxy. So afterwards, they go to Edu Space Station to try to find Jyn's dad. Well, Rebel intelligence finds this out, and they basically go and kill Jyn's father. So they then have to go to Scarif. And I think Scarif is one of the best battles in Star Wars. I think that's one that's definitely up there. You have, ground assault, you have in the sky, and they eventually find the plans, and they get the plans up to Admiral Raddus, and they're just about to escape. And that's when they run into Vader's capital flagship, and Vader basically stops them in their tracks, and we get the Vader hallway scene, which is, I did not expect that when I first saw the film. When I was sitting there and all the rebels were in the hallway when the door was blocked, and you hear Vader breathing and his lightsaber goes or turns on, and I was just in awe. That was a crazy scene. It was dark, how Vader is. It was a cool scene. And they eventually escape and go aboard the Tantive 4, which is the ship that we see, the Rebel ship that we see at the beginning of Episode 4. And they give the Death Star plans to Leia at the end. And she ends the movie by saying that this brings us hope. So I thought that Rogue One really tied everything together. The other thing that I thought was cool was we see how Bail Organa goes to get Leia and then stays on Alderaan. So obviously that kind of sums up when he was on Alderaan, when it was blown up by the Death Star in Episode 4. So I'm going to give, to kind of sum up Rogue One, I'm going to say that I give it a 7.8. I thought it was a good film. The CGI on Leia and Tarkin were okay. I thought it could have been a little better, but 7.8 is a good score. Obviously, nothing's a 10 or a 9, but for me, I'm going to give it a 7.8. I think the film is very well rounded. It answers questions, it fills a storyline. So that's the end of this video. Thanks for watching, guys. Comment below what you think of this video. Hit that subscribe and like button. and we'll see you on the next episode of the Rattlorian. Thanks.